sede vacante, the throne of the Holy See, is vacant.
I've attempted to write this intro for at least 5 times in 5 different angles, and all of them seem to be off. I wanted to mention the church, the quest for power, the petty nature of man, but nothing felt right, so I just start with this. Conclave is a movie behind the process of choosing one man to be pope, but is it any good? Let's find out. I'm Meffistoe. Like, share, and subscribe because this is my review of the movie Conclave.
Let us pray that God will grant us a pope who doubts, and let him grant us a pope who sins and asks for forgiveness, and who carries on.
Conclave is a medium-budget film that goes over the process that is usually very secretive, but in the last 20 years it has been done twice. But that is only a backdrop to a severe political struggle behind the scenes on the direction of the Catholic Church and all of its facets. It was shot in Rome inside part of the Vatican for the exterior shots and recreated the rest on studio sets. And it has an all-star cast of mature and veteran actors. The story begins as the current pope has passed away and the cardinals around the world gather in Rome to start the process of the conclave, the election process in which the new pope is selected. The head cardinal, Dean Lawrence, played by Ralph Fiennes, is tasked to head this conclave and make sure everything proceeds as planned. This is where the political struggle begins as the cardinals slowly trickle into the Sistine Chapel and we see the forming of cliques and groups. The liberals, headed by Cardinal Bellini, played by Stanley Tucci, the hard-nosed conservative, headed by the Cardinal Tedesco, played by Sergio Castellitto, and a few others in various factions. However, putting aside the ambitions and politics, Dean Lawrence discovers that Cardinal Tremblay, played by John Lithgow, was the last one to see His Holiness before he died, and apparently he got sacked, a fact that he truly denies. The dean has no choice. He must start the proceedings because time is short and a pope must be selected. But at the very last minute, another monkey wrench is thrown into this mix. A young cardinal who no one has ever heard of just arrived from his parish in Kabul of all places with a specific letter from the pope himself to let him be a part of this conclave. Cardinal Vicentes Benitez, played by Carlos Diaz. Conclave is one of those Hollywood movies that don't get made very often these days. The reason, of course, that these films tend to not make their money back from theaters and the DVD market is pretty much killed off by the streaming platforms. But it is a kind of movie that I would like to see again and again. Not specifically for this particular story, but have a different story with a small or medium budget. The story dives really deep into the social hierarchy of the Catholic Church, a move that 2 decades ago would have been blasphemous, but in today's climate and today's pope, it is allowed and not shunned from the Holy Seat. In the heart of the argument is the age-old construct: progressives versus conservatives. This is all in the context of the church, of course, but with any political intrigue movie like this, there is always a hidden agenda, and us, the audience, can take sides and root for one character over the other. But the story also raises up another important question: who deserves power? Politics may answer the question of why this man or another man should sit on the throne, but the question of who deserves it also comes into play. Do you give it to someone who is a good manager? Do you give it to someone who seeks power? Or do you anoint a cardinal that doesn't even want to serve as the head of the church? But all of that is pushed into the backdrop because as the conclave starts and as the cardinals are supposed to be shielded from the outside world, Dean Lawrence discovers that the man he admired the most, the deceased pope, has a lot of secrets. His suspicion arises straight from the first day, and later on, he is approached by a priest who everyone knows tends to drink too much, but he divulges a certain information that may or may not be trusted. The dean has to choose his allegiances because he has to stay impartial or have the look of impartiality when he presides these proceedings. And that very thing all the way through. Lithgow, Tucci, and the rest of the supporting cast stay true to their characters. Each represents a certain real-world aspect or a different faction inside the church. Isabella Rossellini represents the female side of the church, meant to be invisible but hold many secrets that cannot be shared because of their own vows. So the star of the show is Ralph Fiennes. I thoroughly enjoyed his acting in this movie as a man man caught between all these different men pulling him one way or another, trying to juggle this conclave and conduct a secret investigation, and all this while dealing with his own personal loss of an old friend, knowing that he is expected to stay calm and move the proceeding along with no hesitation and no qualms. I actually really enjoyed this movie. The sets look amazing. The costuming and the cinematography was a mix between the old and the hyper new. It is a proceeding that I first read about in Dan Brown's book Angels and Devils, and later became a movie starring Tom Hanks. So everything you see in the conclave itself wasn't really new to me personally. But in this case, it's a matter of show and not tell. They don't explain you how everything goes, they just do it. And from that, you pick up on all the different intricate details of it. The thrill of finding the main secret actually leads you down to several different paths and several different secrets was a great revelation to me. But this is not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination. It is slow and methodical, which for some people might be a hard sell and a hard watch. It kept me engaged and wanting to see how it all turns up, and it keeps teasing you about the ending itself. But if you follow the breadcrumbs, it is pretty obvious who's going to be the next pope. However, when the reveal finally happens, the rug is pulled underneath your feet and the agenda behind the entire movie was in the open, and to me, that's where real life and fantasy clash. The ending sucked because it made zero sense. The story felt flat and I felt cheated, especially because I really enjoyed the intrigue and the secrecy within the movie and what one man is willing to do to hold one of the highest offices in the world. And because of this fact alone, I really cannot recommend this movie. It's not a bad movie artistically, and it was a good story, but has one of the worst ending for a good movie that I've ever seen. I thank you for watching, and remember, hope is a good thing, maybe even the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. I'll see you on the next video.